My name is Timuel, Timuel, D as in David, Black, B-L-A-C-K. I was born in Birmingham, Alabama, December 7th, 1918. And my family came to Chicago in August of 1919. And that was immediately after the 1919 race riot, which took place at 29th and the Lake, 29th Street Breach. They came in spite of the fact they knew there had been a race riot, but that didn't stop them from wanting to leave Birmingham, leave Alabama. So most of my life has been spent on the south side of Chicago. I can actually walk from where I live now in Hyde Park to every house or vacant lot where I've lived while I was in Chicago. And that's a story in and of itself. That once upon a time I wasn't welcome in Hyde Park, Kenwood, and that happens later. But it happened in a relationship between blacks and Jewish people mostly. In the 1930s, when my brother was going to the University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana, there were very few blacks at the University of Illinois. Still a few, but much smaller number than exists today. And they could not, the blacks couldn't live on campus. They could go to school, they could work on campus. In the city, they couldn't go to the restaurants, get rooms and places. They had to live with people who had homes, African American people who had homes. They did have a organization, the Kappas, and the women, I think, the Deltas, and they were activists. Now, when they were, once a year they would have called homecoming. So their girlfriends or boyfriends would come to, and that particular time they wanted to show off what we call, brag about their, so they decided to take their partners to the white restaurants, and they were rejected. Now the whites, there were whites, and led by Milton Cohen, and they protested the rejection of these blacks. Some of them belonged to the NAACP, and they picketed those restaurants. Milt was one of the leaders, and later, along with a childhood friend who was a well-known artist, Charles White, they became friends and were in the Spanish Revolution of the late 1930s, what they called the Abraham Lincoln Brigade. And so from that point on, I continued to have a relationship and friendship with Milt, and that became extended to other friends. But when I was in elementary school, because I was at Edmundburg School, it was a mixed population, again, primarily middle-class Jewish, as well as middle-class blacks. Maybe my daddy was a lower class because he worked in stockyards. That was considered not professional, and so, but my mother was a very aggressive woman, and her attitude was, we're not going to live around no poor white folks. When we live, we're going to live around white folks because they got it and we want it, and so we're going to live close. And her attitude was, poor white folks are just as bad off as poor black folks, so we want. Their attitude was, my brother, my sister and I were going to go beyond just where they had been. See, all of my grandparents were slaves, and my mother and father growing up in the South, could only go so far in school. But they were both very, very well-read people. And every night, my mother would read fairy tales and things to my brother and myself before we went to sleep. And so, in those early years, there was a seed, I guess, planted that the world that we saw among the middle-class whites, mostly Jewish, was the kind of world that we wanted to live in physically. And the friendships that we had with our Jewish friends were the kind of thing that we felt should be the kind of behavior for everyone.